To you?
Yeah, you're talking to me. Coach Andre, obviously we are here because we are celebrating the class of 96, Rise of a Nation. How does it feel that 30 years later, literally, you guys are still being immortalized and celebrated for the incredible achievement you guys achieved this time ago?
30 years later than 1996 is a long time.
Yeah.
But I think the feeling to describe it is humble, grateful. Grateful that people still want to talk about the good old days that we brought in 96. Grateful to have my teammates around, that we can still catch up and talk about it, and just to reminisce. Sometimes when people want to come and talk about it, you realize the enormity of what we achieved in 1996. And for many, many years, we've hoped that we can build on that as a nation. We've come close, but I do believe that as time goes on, we can replicate that era in South African football. And I'm super confident about that.
How does it feel watching that? Like the nostalgia, I can imagine how you can reminisce on it, what memories it brings back, because I was still very small, I read about it, but then to see it like that for me was incredible. I can't imagine what it must have been like for you.
Yeah, it's funny though, through the years people have always come to us as the players who represented the country in 96 and asked us what it was like.
Yeah.
That whole experience, that whole period in South African football, and for us to be a part of it. And it was always very difficult to explain it, because people would speak about it with us from a viewership perspective. So as fans, they were watching the games. So what they saw on the field of play was what we dished up as a team. The performances, the results, how we played together, for example. But what the series Class of 96 Rise of a Nation is going to bring to people who want to know more is everything around it. The things they didn't see. What we built, how we built it, Clive Barker, his influence in the team, the supporters, Nelson Mandela, all of those things. So those are the little bits and pieces that also went into those achievements that we were able to get in 1996.
The fact that 30 years has passed and we haven't been able to replicate that, does that speak how difficult it is to actually win the AFCON? Because it happened so early in our history back into football, and then 30 years later we still haven't. Does it speak to the difficulty of winning the tournament?
Really good question. So it's a couple of things for me. One, it's arguably one of the hardest tournaments in world football to win. Because I say that, and yet people say, yeah, but it's only the African continent. It's a tough continent to go and play. It's a tough continent to play against. And during '96 alone, and that's what I'll speak about, there were some really, really tough opposition teams. So teams whose players were playing at the highest level of the game abroad. And I get it, the debate is always going to be there that Nigeria were not there, but I can't speak about that. I can speak about us and how we performed, and I think that we were so good as a team that we would have taken on anyone in the world. And some of our results leading up to that tournament will show you exactly what I'm talking about. And that's why it's a very, very difficult tournament to go and win. We exceeded expectations. I think we exceeded our own expectations, if I'm honest, but we did it. And the reason that we here 30 years later asking questions like, how long is it going to take? Should we have gotten there again? I think that we missed the trick. Our development structures were not properly put in place to develop the next generation of footballers completely. And that for me, in the modern era of football, 30 years on now, you cannot mess around with. You have to have those structures in place. And I think that's why it's taking us a little bit longer than we would like to, but I still am confident because of the structures we are constantly putting in place in South African football, we will get there.
One thing I saw from the first episode is that your selection actually caused some controversy. Steve, his surname just eludes me.
Steve Crowley.
Steve Crowley, because you being selected over him and him being dropped, obviously I know Steve Compella, he then said he won't play for the national team again. Looking at it and in retrospect, were you aware of the magnitude of the situation? Because I can imagine you were just a player wanting to be selected and representing your country.
100%. I think all of us were. what people got to realize, it's one of the biggest honors that can be bestowed on any player is representing their country. And throughout the years, that's the feeling that it gave you. That's the yardstick against others, and that's the ultimate cherry on the top for any player is getting that call up, receiving that call up for your national team. When I first came into the national team, it was a very difficult process trying to keep my place in the squad of players and also fighting for the number one spot. Like you said, I was up against Mark Anderson, for example, who was our first ever Bafana international goalkeeper. Now, Mark set the bar very, very high for all of us, and we've got to thank him as players, because that bar was something that helped us to reach our highest levels. Steve Crowley, also Wade Duplessis had come in, Roger De Saa was all there, John Clyley a little bit later. So the competition for places in the goalkeeping department was very, very high. And it's always disappointing when you either dropped or you don't get a call up, because I've been there, and it's not a nice feeling. And but also it forces you to work harder. So for me, if in the end it was a case that I received that call up ahead of Steve, it's a massive honor. Steve Crowley was one of my ultimate heroes in the local game back in the day. And to be able to have worked with him at the national team was just something that inspired me a lot. So to get that call up for me was one of the highest honors in the beginning of my Bafana career.
Two more questions. Last week I had spoken to Itumeleng Khune, and he says that he had started his own academy, goalkeeping academy, to avoid a goalkeeping crisis. He says that there was always a contingency plan. After Andre Arendse was someone, after someone there was he says that after Ronwen, he doesn't really see anyone putting up their hand and taking it, so he wants to develop the next generation. Do you think that there's a goalkeeper crisis in the country?
I don't want to use the word crisis, because we have got talented goalkeepers within our structures, but there is a lack of top class that you need, and you need top class to represent you at international level. Ronwen is that level. Itumeleng Khune was at that level when he was a player, so I understand where he's coming from. I would have liked, and I still believe they can, Ricardo Goss and Sipho Chane to get closer to Ronwen. That's going to take some time. So when Itu says there is a bit of a goalkeeping crisis, we better believe there is room for developing more. That's what we need to. We need to build a pool of goalkeepers, and I applaud that. I applaud that he's taking that initiative to bring those, to develop those, to find them, because they are out there. We are a country rich in talent. There's no doubt about that. But it is our scouting structures we need to improve. That we find the best, we nurture the best, and we take them to elite levels. And goalkeepers like Itumeleng Khune are skilled at doing that. So that for me is what we need to put together. We need to build goalkeeping structures that is going to compete against the best. So it starts with our club teams in the PSL. Where the concern is at the moment is that I look at maybe 10 of our PSL teams have foreign goalkeepers as number ones. So we need to be bringing through a lot more young, talented local goalkeepers to try and push for places in our PSL teams.
Last one. This current Bafana squad, and people always compare 96 to the current. Last AFCON we finished third, got a bronze medal, which was massive improvement from the previous ones. This one, round of 16, we were eliminated, unfortunately. What do we need to do, coach? And I know it's not a simple answer in that do A, B, and C and we'll do it. But what needs to be done as an organization and as a team for us to take that next step? Because we're close, we're knocking on the door, we're making progress. We're just not taking that next step. What do we need to do? And you're 100% correct. It's not fair, I don't think, to compare 96 to the current Bafana team, because two totally different eras of football. But there are similar character traits that you need to be able to go all the way at international level, and of course at AFCON level, if you like. Let me take the current Bafana squad, for example. When it comes to hardcore talent, skill and ability, I think
individual brilliance, I think that this squad, perhaps, in most areas, are better than the 96 squad. I see togetherness in this current Bafana team that we had, brothers in arms, family, whole family vibe. I see that in this current Bafana squad, as well as it was in the 96 squad. The only missing thing for me, and I can see it in performances, body language, because I know how to look for it, is the mental toughness side. That for me is something that we had in abundance, unbeatable, unbreakable, and you can see it in the way people carry themselves. And I think that for me is possibly where the 96 squad were just miles ahead of everything, because that's what you need at that level. You need to understand what that side of the game looks like to be able to take on the best in Africa.